Thank you, Brittany. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday webinar through the Institute. I'm really thrilled to be presenting today about offering client choice and promoting dignity by allowing guests to choose their food. This is something that's really near and dear to my heart. And just to give a little brief background about our Institute, if you're not familiar, we serve as a resource for food banks, food pantries, and community partners. These are our 4 goals: to increase access to healthy food, address root causes of hunger, and today's webinar is a great example of how we identify best practices. Client choice is definitely a best practice within charitable food work, and to promote a paradigm shift towards long-term solutions to hunger. If you haven't already subscribed to the Institute, please do. There's a link here, foodshare.org/institute, so you can get our monthly updates and hear more about the work that we do and to sign up for future webinars. I'm also thrilled to let you know that today I will be joined by Jen Lamplow, who's the Senior Director of Strategy at the Northern Illinois Food Bank. They've done some really fantastic and innovative work around client choice, and I'm thrilled to have her present with me today. So first, it's really helpful if we can get a handle on who is here with us today, who is in the audience. So if you can just take a moment and let us know the type of organization that you are representing today. And once those come in, we will see. Okay, we have a lot of regional food banks staff, fantastic. Local food pantries, awesome. We tried to cover most of our bases. I think we did pretty well here. So a few others, but welcome to all of you. This will definitely be very relevant, I think, for food banks and food pantries. Those of you who are with other community-based groups, government agencies, or academic institutions, I would encourage you to think about a food pantry or distribution site that you are familiar with to answer these next questions. So we're going to post these 2 questions as a poll. So if you can think about your food pantry or a food pantry that you work most closely with, to let us know before the COVID-19 pandemic, how did your pantry distribute food to guests? And I'll let you read those selections. Food packed in bags, every client given the same food, pre-packed bags with a few items for choice selection, clients tell volunteers what they want, the volunteers pack the bags, clients see and select their own food and bag their own food. And finally, when clients can see and select the food that they want, and they also provide feedback to staff and volunteers about the food that they want to receive. So select one of those options. And then also, when you think about where we are now in 2021, how ready is your food pantry or agency to introduce client choice? Thinking about it, preparing to make changes, already offering some choice, want to offer more, fully offering choice and gathering feedback, or NA. And when we feel like we've got a pretty good representation, almost, make your final answers here, folks. Drum roll, please. Okay. So before COVID, fair amount of limited or moderate choice, about a third where clients could select and see the food they want and bag their own food, what I would call full choice, and then enhanced choice where you're gathering feedback. That's fantastic. And then, awesome. How ready are you? Thinking about it, making plans. This is great news. So, want to offer more, doing great work. Thank you all for sharing these results. I think it's really nice to see these in real time, so we know where folks are. We recognize that we're still in a pandemic, so these are interesting times for sure. So today we're talking about offering client choice and what that looks like, how we can allow our guests, our clients, our customers to shop for their food with dignity. And that can take many different forms. And what I'm hoping you're going to learn today is some different ideas and inspiration for doing this more in your communities. You've maybe heard this adage, it's one that I'm very keen on, is that when you've seen one food pantry, you've seen one food pantry. And what that speaks to me is that there is no one size fits all for the work that we do. Your community is unique, your space, your volunteer, your staffing, your hours of operation are unique to you. So there isn't just one cookie cutter way to do this work. At the same time, then that gives us the flexibility to try new things, to innovate and expand the work that we do. So again, I'm hoping that you're going to get some new examples and ideas for your food pantry as you offer more choice or reintroduce choice from COVID. I've put together a rather short list of what I would consider the laundry list of benefits of offering client choice. So it sounds like many of you are already doing a lot of this great work. If you're here in this webinar today, I'm probably preaching to the choir. But for those of you who are still thinking about this or maybe need to influence some other key people on your team, here are some benefits to client choice. It absolutely increases the dignity of receiving help. It's humbling to ask for help. Allowing people to choose, make choices, increases dignity. When we think about charitable food work, we like to be efficient, to make sure that we're focused on efficiently distributing food. The reality is, when everyone gets the same bag of food, they may not all want that food. And what we have heard and seen more anecdotally is that offering client choice can reduce food waste, that people are more inclined to choose the food that they actually are going to bring home to their families. You can tailor food to clients' dietary, cultural preferences and needs. It reduces stigma. We talk a lot in the Feeding America Network and nationally about putting the people we serve at the heart of what we do. Thinking from a client perspective, a person-centered approach, putting our customers and our guests first is at the heart of this work. I'll talk a little bit about the role of volunteers. This work is definitely putting the people we serve at the heart of what we do. There's also certainly in this past year an incredible new awareness about focusing on equity, inclusion, and offering client choice can literally and figuratively break down barriers between those who are giving and providing food and those who are receiving the food. When you have a space where people are making choices for their own food, particularly if it's in more of a shopping environment within a food pantry, there are more opportunities to build relationships, to build community, to build social capital. We often talk about providing not just a handout, but a hand up. And unfortunately, when we pre-bag food and we hand everyone the same bag of food, we're instinctively letting them know you should put your hand out and we'll hand you the food. So this is truly just a better approach for providing food. There are many, many different ways to offer client choice. That's one of the key take-home messages that I hope you take from this webinar. In my opinion, from my experience visiting a lot of food pantries around the country, virtually every type of food pantry can be converted to allow people to choose their own food. Whether it's a table setup, if you have shelves to designate for people to shop, there are multiple different ways to offer client choice. And Jen's going to talk about some even online ordering ways. There are different ways to offer choice. Trust me when I say I've heard many, many reasons why it will be difficult, or sometimes people claim it would be impossible to offer client choice. I understand these challenges and these perceived barriers. The number one barrier that I often hear is that there isn't enough space. I understand that there's often challenges with space. You may need to get creative. You may need to reconfigure the way that you design your food pantry space. But I would encourage you to rethink that as a barrier, that there are different ways that you can configure your space to allow choice. Sometimes there's the concern that people will take too much food if we offer choice. Another key thing to think about is offering client choice does not necessarily mean that people can take as much food as they want. Many client choice pantries will still set limits on how many food items people can choose. Not enough time is often a barrier that people mention. And yet, if you think creatively for the amount of time that your volunteers and pantry staff are spending pre-bagging food, preparing food for others, you can reconfigure that time to allow for additional options for choice. Not as convenient for volunteers. Our volunteers won't like it so much. I understand that. But I would encourage you to think of who are you serving and making sure that you're putting the needs of your guests before the convenience of your volunteers. You may have some volunteers who will not be thrilled with some of the changes you're making. You'll have other volunteers who are really appreciative and perhaps gain new volunteers along the way. And I struggled quite a bit, I'll tell you, in preparing this presentation, because the number one thing that went out the window last year with the pandemic was client choice. And, I get that from a public health perspective. We all had to pivot. I am super encouraged by how many people are reaching out to us who are interested in learning more about client choice, who are interested in offering more, reintroducing choice. So I'm very much aware that we're in a pandemic. I also think it gives us, reasons to innovate and try new things, because we've had to try new things during this year. I saw this quote this past Monday, 2 days ago, in an email from a colleague, from Maya Angelou, that says, "Do the best you can, but when you know better, do better." And I just thought how apropos that is for our discussion today, because nationally, for those of us working, particularly within food banks, we recognize that allowing people to choose their food, offering choice, is a best practice. But unfortunately, it's not uniformly practiced in the network. And I think if we all know this is the better way to provide food for people in need, it's time. It's really time to move forward with this. So some of the logistics that you may be thinking, remember why you do this work. I can't hone in on that enough, of just the experience. And Jen's going to speak to this a lot in her presentation. Just remember why we get involved with providing food in our communities in the first place, and that there are many different ways that you can offer choice, and you can take one step to offer a little bit more choice and variety within your agency and your food pantries. You will likely need to think of new roles for your volunteers. If they have been bagging food and providing food in drive-through distributions curbside this year, rethinking the way that your volunteers are conducting their work, reconfiguring space, with shelves, displays. Think of the flow, think of the customer experience if you're designing to offer choice for the first time so it looks and feels more like a shopping experience. You may need to consider different hours of operation. It is more challenging if you have a very limited amount of time when your pantry is open to guests, let's say 2 hours per week, and you're serving several hundred people. It will be challenging to offer client choice where people shop. But there are likely other times when your volunteers are available where they're bagging the food that you can consider different hours of operation. If you need more evidence and rationale for doing this work, I talk about this in my book, Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries. There's a whole chapter on client choice, and I mention how 100% of the time, from my experience, when people convert to client choice, 100% of the time, they say they're glad that they did it, they wish they had done it earlier, and that it's just a better experience for their guests, for their volunteers, for their programming. So again, this can take many different forms. There's many different ways to offer choice. And I am now thrilled to pass the mic over to Jen Lamplow, who's going to describe some of the really cool work that they're doing in Illinois.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with all of you and talking about this subject because it's one of my favorite subjects to talk about. Just a little bit quickly about our food bank. We serve the 13 counties in Northern Illinois that's surrounding Cook County, where Chicago is. So our sister food bank is the Greater Chicago Food Depository. We're founded in 1983, and so we are been serving for over 35 years. We're the largest food bank in Illinois by distribution. And you can see our 13 counties there. We serve about 500,000 people per year. And we have an extremely amazing, robust network of food pantries and soup kitchens and feeding programs. Our main center is right in the center there in Kane County in Geneva, Illinois. And then we have 3 satellite locations to the northeast, the northwest, and in the south. And of course, we are a proud member of Feeding America's network of food banks. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Our mission, one back, thank you. Our mission and vision for our food bank, we just embarked on a new strategic plan this year. So our last strategic plan ended in 2020, which was an interesting time to end a strategic plan in the midst of a pandemic. And it was also an interesting time to pivot on what we were planning on doing for our new strategic plan. Because as you all probably have experienced too, the pandemic changed a lot of what we do and how we do it and how quickly we do it. And it really drove home the neighbor-centered practices that we hold up here. We call our guests, our customers, we call them neighbors. And so we have upgraded, I say, our mission and our vision to providing not only food, but also resources for our neighbors. And we really like to hone in on the phrase with dignity, equity, and convenience, because choice isn't just the ability to choose what kind of food you have. It's also the ability to choose when you get it, how you get it, where you get it, how often you get it, how much of it you get. And that all ties back to what Katie was talking about with dignity. And we do that, we can't do that alone, obviously. We do that through partnerships, and we do it through innovative programs. Our vision here is for everyone in Northern Illinois to have the food they need to thrive, not just survive, but thrive. And so Katie, if you want to go to the next one. Around the topic of innovation, one of our innovative programs where we offer choice to neighbors in a variety of ways is through our My Pantry Express program, which is our online food pantry. When we created this program a couple of years ago, it was in pilot phase the year before the pandemic. And we asked the question, how might we offer food assistance in a way that increases access, decreases stigma, and builds trust with our neighbors? Building trust is all about customer satisfaction. And so as we practice neighbor-centered decision-making, building trust with them is around achieving satisfaction with the services that we're providing. And so what My Pantry Express is it's a private online shopping experience. You don't have to give any information except for some contact information so we can reach out to you about your order. You don't even need to give your full name, just an email address and a phone number. Right now we have pickups, and we have pickup times at places other than where you normally get charitable food. So we have amazing partnerships with organizations like Walmart and Goodwill and local universities, and we do those distributions at those places. And it's very important for us that that's a huge part of this, because we're trying to normalize the experience of getting charitable food. And again, there's minimal eligibility requirements. You're self-attesting to the need, and you're self-attesting to that you're using this food for you and your family, and that you're not doing anything else with it. But other than that, there's no, income guidelines or, geographic guidelines. When the pandemic hit, we went from full choice. We had 40 some items available for neighbors to choose from. We had to take away choice, as all of you did. And so we went to this sort of pre-packed model where there were, 5 or 6 options available of like a variety box that we called simple staples. So it was, beans and rice and pasta and peanut butter and canned vegetables and those sorts of things without any choice. You just got the box. And we had a couple of other things. We had produce, we had meat, and we had dairy. But that was pretty much it. We went from this shopping list of over 40 items for our neighbors to this probably 6 or 7 items. And we saw the numbers go up at first because of the pandemic, but then people stopped using the program. And so we engaged with IDEO, which you see their name at the bottom there. They are a human-centered design company, global human-centered design company. And they partnered with us to really dive in and talk to our neighbors and find out what they needed and why choice for them was so important. And so they created this research panel of our pantry customers, our My Pantry Express customers, and they engaged with them for 7 weeks, and they really got deep with them. They did weekly questions, they had assignments, they had to send videos of them unboxing their order and what they cooked with it and what they made with it. And I'm going to show you a video in a few minutes here that will drive this home. And we also did this at the same time. We sent out a customer satisfaction survey to over 1,200 of our neighbors who used the program. And we really wanted to understand like how important the choice is to them, whether it was okay that they were getting the pre-packed boxes or not. And what we learned is that a huge part of not offering choice is guilt around food waste. We all understand food waste. That's what we're here for, right? We understand that. And so transferring food waste to neighbors is a burden on them. And so this is just like one of the questions that we talked to them about was, why were you unable to use some of the groceries that you received when we took away choice? And a lot of it is about, I have too much of this item already, and they felt wasteful, and it gave them this sense of guilt. They didn't want to waste it. They didn't want to throw it away. They didn't want to have to give it away to somebody else. But there's reasons people can't use the food. Either it would negatively affect their health. They don't like it. It's not part of their culture. What we've realized is that offering this choice, the lack of quality and the lack of choice feels to our neighbors like a lack of dignity. When we are able to give our neighbors choice, it empowers them to provide for themselves and their families in a way that feels normal and in a way that gives them what they need for their family and their whatever it is, whether it's a food allergy or a medical condition or whatever it is. And so this is just one example of one of the questions that we asked. We had lots of questions. If you can go to the next slide, this was our panel. So these are some of our neighbors who we talked with about the My Pantry Express program. And some of the quotes from the panel and from our neighbors in the survey, we really tried to give them modified, a little bit of modified choice, but we really believe we needed to go back to full choice because of the things we heard from them. They asked, let us pick our individual items so I don't take something that I can't or won't eat, or that maybe somebody else could use. Or give me the option to double up on something that I really like peanut butter. I go through peanut butter all the time. And so give me the option to double up on that and not take something else. We think that by going back to that full choice, which we have, As of March, we've gone back to full choice on MPX, and I'll talk a little bit about that. We've seen quite a difference. And so as we embarked on this, so as we embarked on the survey, these are the things that we really found from our neighbors that is meaningful to them around what choice is. And I want to preempt this saying that choice doesn't have to be an online food pantry. An online food pantry is super innovative. It's new to the industry. There's a lot that goes into it. And I can hear some of you thinking yeah, that's great for you because you have an online food pantry, but my pantry, we're not able to do this. And it doesn't have to be an online food pantry. There's small ways, like Katie talked about, to start either reintroducing choice if you used to be choice, or starting to implement it. I'll give you an example. We also have a brick and mortar food pantry at our Rockford Center, which is our Northwest Center. And we were a full choice market. We looked like a grocery store. People walked in with their carts and they got to choose every single item that they wanted. We did have a few limits on numbers of items just because of maybe a carton of eggs, we had a limit of 2 cartons of eggs just because we had a limited number of them and we wanted to make sure everybody got some. But it was full choice, and we served about 700 neighbors a week. When the pandemic hit and we switched to a drive-up model, at our height, we were serving 1,500 families a week. And so we took away choice. We went to pre-packed stuff. And we were like, how could we ever go back to choice in a drive-up model serving 1,500 families a month? And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through these, but just, we reintroduced choice in a teeny tiny way at that drive-up model, just by giving people the opportunity to say no to something. And so the choice of refusal, which is one of these slides we'll get to in a second, is just one of those things, right? So having the ability to choose what you want is the ultimate choice, but having the ability to refuse something is also a way of offering choice. Even if that's the only thing you can do right now, our drive-up model at our Winnebago Community Market, our traditional food pantry, that's our only choice that people have right now. It's the ability to refuse. And what this boils down to is that food waste again. It's giving people the peace of mind that they're not taking something that they can't use, because there's a lot of guilt around that. Another thing that came out of our survey was this having the means to choose what to cook. So many of our neighbors said having the ability to have ingredients and make what I want is so much more meaningful than having pre-made meals or meal kits or meal helper meals, because they can make a bunch of different things. So when they choose what to cook, it becomes an act of love for them. So when their partners or their children ask what they would like to eat, they can be proud of the meal they're serving. Ingredients is greater than quantity, having that ability to have those things. The next one is being ability to be authentic to their cultural identity. We heard so many our neighbors, food is such a huge part of their culture, and that's how they identify. And so whether it's cultural or whether it's dietary or whether it's preferential, the best way to show respect and acknowledge our neighbors as individuals is to acknowledge their different needs and give them those options. The next one is for them to, be comfortable enough to accept the help and use the service. The more we can normalize it for people, the more people we're going to be able to serve. And I really equate this to the pandemic, putting so many people into food insecurity who have never used charitable food before. They either don't know where to go, don't know what's available, don't know if it's, if they qualify for it, right? So the more we can normalize the experience and it feels like them ordering groceries from the grocery store and going to pick it up, it feels the same way, then they're going to be more willing to accept the help, right? And people do want the help. They want the help, but they might not identify as a person who uses charitable food. So sort of normalizing it helps them accept the service. And the next one, we heard this so much, and I know you all have heard this too. People want to give back, right? They want to either give back to the food bank or the food pantry, or they want to extend the service to someone who they know who might need it, right? And, giving back is a way for it to, again, feel normalized, where it's not just accepting the help, but it's also giving back. It elevates the way that your neighbor, your customer feels about the service that you provide for them. And then this next one, I don't need to tell any of you about being part of a community, because we know that's what all of your food pantries are doing, is creating that sense of community. And so having the ability to go through and shop and it just feels normal. It feels like, oh, this is my store. These are my people. And being part of that community and having a place where they can come together and feel like they belong. And it has that sense of dignity, and somebody's not, handing them something that they don't want or looking over their shoulder while they're shopping. It creates this sense of peace, and it creates this sense of belonging that will help people continue to use the services as long as they need them. And so in our collaboration with IDEO, we've heard so many stories from people, and we really wanted to capture all of them and tell everybody's story, which of course would be a 7-hour-long movie. So they're amazing. And what they were able to do was to create this mini documentary about My Pantry Express and the program and what it offers to people around the choice of food, where to pick it up, how to pick it up, all of that, when to order, the convenience of all of that is told in this story around this documentary they made called Food Pantries Are for People. And so I'm going to give you all a chance to watch it because it's really fantastic. It's only 5 minutes long. I think we're going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and I'm going to click over to the video.
And Jen, if I could just ask you a couple, we've got some great questions coming in.
Sure.
Keep them rolling, everybody. Just a couple quick questions for you. Regarding My Pantry Express, is this run by the food bank or by a food pantry partner?
So it's run by the food bank right now. So we have proprietary software that we've developed with a software company. Feeding America is also working on an online food pantry called Order Ahead, and they're also in understanding and pilot phase, and are actually looking for food banks who want to try it out. It's not ready for the food pantries yet. We do have a cohort happening right now with some of our food pantries who are offering the program, but we're still managing it from the ordering and the inventory perspective. And over this next year, we're working on creating sort of franchising the software so that we could give it to a food pantry and they could use it themselves and use their own inventory. We're just not quite there yet. We're on the track, and then the pandemic hit. So now we're picking that part of it back up. But if you want to reach out to Feeding America about their Order Ahead system, you can reach out to Dan Butt. He is overseeing that program there. Awesome. If you're a food bank, the food pantries, I don't think it's quite ready for the food pantries just yet.
All right, so go ahead, Jen. Hopefully you can share the video.
And I'm going to remember to hit share the sound.
I lost my job because I had my daughter and I didn't have nobody to take care of her.
I love the freedom of working for myself, but the current pandemic has had a significant impact on the business.
I lost my job because of disability, and we couldn't afford to shop for groceries.
1 in 6 families are now food insecure. When the pandemic appeared in March of 2020, we saw people who had never used food pantries coming to us for the first time. So the work that we do now with My Pantry Express, it is even more important. We want to create a service that really meets their need and really lets them know that we are here for them. My name is Wei Chang. I am the My Pantry Express program manager here at Northern Illinois Food Bank. Our main facility is here in Geneva, Illinois. This is the largest warehouse that we have and where we mostly operate. We have about 900 different programs that we work with. That includes food pantries, soup kitchens, residential homes, shelters, anywhere really where food is needed. My Pantry Express is one of our newer programs. We launched it back in February 2019. It is our online option for people to get access to groceries. Over 2 years ago, we learned that there was a handful of barriers that were preventing people from accessing services. And we found that technology could be this great solution. And this is how and why we built My Pantry Express. We're the first food bank to dive into this e-commerce world of offering groceries online. The idea is that you submit an order for your groceries, select the locations that we are distributing out of, and pick it up as if you would any other service. And we learned from IDEO and their research that choice is really important to people. And so we're trying to drive all of our decisions based on the people who are using My Pantry Express.
My name is Jordan Van Tassel. I was a dispatcher for an ambulance company, and I had to stare at a lot of screens for a lot of hours, and I had intermittent migraines. It really made it so that I couldn't do the work that I was hired for.
My name is Shelly Scout. I had an opportunity to start my own business, but being in retail is really challenging. During the pandemic, people are not spending as much money.
My name is Marilyn Alvarado. I have 5 kids. It's going to be a little bit difficult for me to go and find a job and leaving the kids at home by themselves due to COVID and homeschooling.
The first time we went to the food bank was about 2 years ago, shortly after I lost my job. One of the things that I've been really happy about Northern Illinois Food Bank has been the ability to make choices about what kind of food we're bringing home. This week it's 3 cans of cranberry juice cocktail. I like that a lot. It gives us a certain amount of dignity in choosing our own diet, as well as being able to not waste food that somebody else could use.
There you have it. Homemade applesauce.
And this, I'm super excited about this. We got a cantaloupe this week. It's been nice to be able to know that I can go to the food pantry when I'm not selling as much product. This doesn't really have a name, but we call it Mom's Mix, mostly because my mom made it for me a lot. And one of the things I love about My Pantry Express is that you don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops. You don't have to prove that you're poor, or you don't have to talk about your personal circumstances to be able to access the food.
First time I went to the food bank, it was a little bit scary. I've never been to any place like that. But then like when I got there and they handed me the bag, I felt so relieved that I was gonna have enough food for the kids.
We started My Pantry Express in 2019, but the importance of it has increased dramatically because of the pandemic. We saw how many more people wanted it. This concept was something people were looking for. And while we can't solve everything that is going on in their lives, we can at least provide this assurance that they will have groceries so they can take care of other things in their lives.
Thank you for letting me share that. And I also want to preempt the saying that we know not everybody wants the online food pantry option. We know that there's a spectrum of services, which is also another way to offer choice. Do you want to come to a food pantry and have a community and talk with them? Great, we have that option. Do you want to just order online and pick up when it's convenient for you and not have to deal with any of the rest of it? Fine, we have that too, right? So that adds to that spectrum of choice. And so if you can go to the next slide for me. First of all, I just have to acknowledge IDEO and what an amazing job they did on that documentary, and to our neighbors who were so brave to share their story. You know, that's not an easy thing to do when it talks about trying to provide food for your family, just that basic thing. So to really acknowledge that group and tell them thank you for what they did for us by sharing their story. So what's next for us is we have reintroduced choice at the end of February for My Pantry Express. It's going great. We have just in the last couple of weeks embarked on a brand new partnership with DoorDash. And we are partnering with them to offer the option to select delivery as well, free home delivery of My Pantry Express. We're also piloting it at our brick and mortar food pantry at the Winnebago Community Market. So we literally just started that in the last 2 weeks. So I don't have a lot to share about that, but that's something that we're working on and we're very excited about. And then we're launching phase 3 of this work with IDO to continue to learn more about the importance of choice, how choice can be integrated into our technology and our customer experience. And then something they're going to do for us, kind of that has come out of that research panel of neighbors that you saw, is to establish this ongoing neighbor council so that we can ask the neighbors what they want instead of us making assumptions about what they want. That's the basics of human-centered design, neighbor-centered design, person-centered design. I call it the platinum rule. You know, the golden rule is do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself. The platinum rule is do unto others as they would like you to. So we try to follow the platinum rule when we work with our neighbors, and we want their voices. So IDO is going to help us do that. So we are so incredibly excited and grateful. And so I'm sure everybody has lots and lots of questions. And so you are welcome to contact me. On the screen, you have my phone number and my email. If you want to look at mypantryexpress.org, you are free to go out and look at our online shopping. Just if you don't live in our service area and you don't need a delivery, don't finish the order, but you certainly can play around and look at it. But I'm happy to share any info with anybody that wants it. So please feel free to reach out. And thank you to Katie and Brittany for having me here today to talk about this incredibly important topic.
Thank you so much, Jen. And we'll go through, I don't know that we're going to get through all the questions. If we can go through a few of them. One of the questions was about approaching Walmart as a pickup location, and how did that go, particularly with the idea that it could be a conflict of interest of people getting free food when they could come in the store and purchase food. How did you build those relationships?
Well, we know that people go to Walmart for more than food, and we know that we only are able to offer so much through My Pantry Express. And so the way we sort of approached Walmart about it was people are likely coming to Walmart anyway for other things. How about we offer the service, and then they're going to be able to supplement some of their groceries through us, and then they can get the other stuff that they need at Walmart. We have a great relationship with Walmart. The Feeding America Network does. Our food bank does, and we had someone from the Walmart, sort of executive team on our board. And when we started this program and talked to them about it, we realized what an amazing opportunity it was to potentially partner, and how important the research we did about My Pantry Express is. We did a couple of experiments, and we experimented with pickup locations, and 75% of the neighbors, or maybe more, wanted to choose something that felt more normalized than a food pantry. And so, because these are new neighbors who are maybe not already using a food pantry, which was a lot of our customers who were using My Pantry Express. And so they're sort of like, I'm already going to Walmart. If I can get some free groceries and then finish my shopping at Walmart and maybe get the diapers that I need, or the, what the cleaning supplies or whatever it is, it really ended up being a great partnership.
Then I'm going to combine a few questions here perhaps, but I think it speaks to that nature of the role of the food bank, other partners, and then our member agencies and food pantries of, how do we help clients who maybe don't have the technology to use an online order, or also, is this going to usurp existing food pantries from the services that they provide? If you could just speak to kind of both,
Sure.
meeting different needs within the community.
Absolutely. And this goes back to sort of that spectrum of services that we talked about, right? Not everybody is going to be comfortable using an online option. So we're always going to need the in-person. We're always going to need the online. We're always going to need, somewhere in between. That including, SNAP benefits, and including all the areas where we can offer assistance and choice, right? SNAP is the ultimate choice because you can use it anytime at any grocery store and buy, whatever you need with it grocery wise. But then compiling all those services on top of it. We have neighbors who use My Pantry Express who don't have a computer, and they just call us and they call our service line, and our team will help them. We don't have a lot of those, and we try not to have that because we don't have a huge team. But it can be a simple, we know some of our food pantries who are still in the drive-up model are offering choice just by letting their neighbors call in and giving them a menu and telling them, you have the ability to choose what you want off this menu. and then, their volunteers pack it up and then they come and pick it up. So it's like the online food pantry without the online. It's over the phone. So there's little ways to do it. We were talking about that at our brick and mortar food pantry at the Winnebago Community Market, but because we serve so many neighbors each week, we don't have the capacity to take phone orders. But if you're a smaller pantry and you have the capacity and you have the volunteers, and that's right now in the pandemic, that's a great volunteer gig. If somebody's nervous about being around other people, they can just sit and take orders over the phone. So there's always creative ways, to start offering choice. And it's really, it's not, one is not the answer. It's this sort of like rainbow or spectrum of choices that feed into that idea of choice about how, where, and when you get your food.
Amen, sister. A few really practical questions. Stephanie Burno is asking, what online platform do you use? Like Agency Express, Web Windows?
So for My Pantry Express, we have our own proprietary software for that. For the rest of our operations, we have Agency Express, and we use Series as our inventory system. That part of it has been very hard because My Pantry Express inventory does not connect to Series, which is our inventory management software. And so that's why we haven't expanded even more than we'd like to, because of those manual processes. So right now we're in the midst of getting a middle system software that's going to connect the two. So we can expand a little more. That's been a real challenge for us. And then going forward, to be able to offer this to our agencies, we need to be able to sort of franchise the software and let the agencies use their own inventory. So that's like that's the next great barrier that we're trying to overcome in order to expand this.
Maybe some fabulous, smart, techie persons on our webinar today figuring out the solution for us.
Yes.
Does your food bank only use purchased product, or do you use government like TFAP food?
We use purchased, donated, and government food. We don't use government food for the My Pantry Express program right now because we're not able to manage the requirements for using that food through our state through the online model, but it's on our list of things we would like to be able to offer.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a mix of purchase versus donated.
Yeah. I'm going to just go through a couple other ones. What's the average percent of neighbors who don't show up for their pickup? If they don't show, do you know what the next step is?
Yeah, so we have, I would say, I don't know, the average is maybe around 15 to 20%, but we have a process for what we call adopting the orders. So we either have a food pantry on standby who we give the orders to, or oftentimes we'll have people who walk up and they're like, what is this? And we tell them what it is. And we say, if you can stick around, oftentimes there's orders left at the end and you're free to take it. So we try to adopt out those orders if people aren't able to come. Right now, we're trying to shorten our order window is 3 business days, which is a little bit of a barrier because I don't know about you, but if I order groceries online, like I want to get them that day or the next day. So if like I'm ordering on Friday, their order isn't ready till Tuesday or Wednesday the next week, like I'm like I've forgotten about it by then. So we're trying to shorten that order window in order to make it more accessible.
Awesome. Good. Well, and here is Jen's contact information. There's so many good questions here. Thank you.
I see one question about like where the food is stored. It varies by site. So some sites, our truck drops it off and our truck stays and we do the distribution. Our Walmart sites, they let us use some of their freezer and cooler space and dry storage space, which is miraculous, but also challenging because Walmart is big and busy. And so, we have a variety of ways that the food is stored.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good. So we probably will have time for a few more Q&A. I just want to go through a few more pieces here. As Jen mentioned a lot in hers, and we all know this, that during COVID, because of the economic shock of COVID, we have a lot of new people coming to our network, a lot of new people who are facing food insecurity for the first time. And so much of this work around client choice, and as Jen mentioned, it's the convenience, it's around locations and times, not just the food items, is how do we meet people where they are, literally and figuratively? How do we create a dignified experience? I think we have this extraordinary opportunity in response to COVID for people who never ever thought that they would need to ask for help with free food, to provide a dignified experience, to minimize that stigma, the humiliation, so that hopefully they can be ambassadors for our work and share the message with other neighbors that when you need help, you can reach out and get it. And it was an okay experience, and that we can help people get back on their feet. I would encourage you all, there were a few questions of how do we ask people, or should we be asking people whether they're ready to come back inside? I have heard from a number of food pantries in Ohio and Massachusetts who are doing just that. They're doing some basic surveys or asking clients their preferences. I would encourage you to think of perhaps some hybrid models, because so much of our lives these days are hybrid focused. You know, many of us are coming back to work some days in the office, some days at home, some days virtually. How do we embed that kind of flexibility in the work that we do? We know for sure that some people are absolutely ready to be coming back in and shopping again, choosing their own food. Not everyone is. And so are there different ways that you can offer choice with convenience? So maybe you do drive-through like you have been doing, but start to reintroduce inside shopping. I know that's going to be complex in terms of hours and volunteers, but again, this is about being creative and meeting people where they are and seeing how that evolves. Online ordering, phone ordering, Jen gave a lot of great examples of how that there's no one size fits all here. And I also think in terms of asking guests for their choices, there are many different ways to do that. You could do some basic paper surveys, some phone surveys, do a survey monkey, different ways that you can ask people for their options to get that feedback to inform the work that you do. We're going to make this available. I mentioned this in my book as a resource. I think this is really terrific. This is pre-pandemic, but I think it still rings true. This wonderful resource from Ohio, the Second Harvest Food Bank in Ohio, making the switch. And there's a lot of great information, a lot of practical information. So we will be sharing this in our resources with all of you. And I mentioned my book. If you haven't heard about my book, it's called Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries. Island Press is the publisher. And if you want to order, you can go on their website and enter my last name, Martin, to get 20% off. If you prefer to listen to your books, you can go on Amazon. It's also available on audio. And chapter 5 is completely dedicated to the dignity of offering client choice within pantries. So if, you know, we had over 200 people on the webinar today, which is just super exciting. So I'm thrilled that you all are thinking about client choice. This is a great place to start to hear about this work. Would love to get your feedback about our webinar. We've been hosting these since February. We want to continue to learn and make sure that we're doing our work well. So please let us know how we did, how we can improve, what this meant to you. If you have questions, you can reach out to me or my wonderful colleague, Brittany, at the Institute for Hunger Research and Solutions. And just as a sneak preview for our Wednesday webinar next month, Brittany will be presenting on this evidence review that we recently conducted with Feeding America, all around partnerships between food banks and healthcare partners. So hopefully you can join us on June 16th. And I think we've got just a few more minutes. If Jen or Brittany, if you can see if there's other questions that we can answer and respond to as we're live.
I was trying to type some of the answers in as we were going. Somebody asked about SNAP and said they're considering switching to giving out gift cards or vouchers only. This obviously gives the most choice. Would you recommend, or do you see a downside? I would say the downside would be, it depends on how much they're for and how much they can get with them. If it's, you know, a $15 gift card, it might not be enough to get the groceries. So maybe a combination of things. Sometimes what we've seen, some of our, like, we have a mobile pantry program, and some of our sponsors of our mobile pantry program will have gift cards in case we run out of food, but there's still people that need to be served. And so they'll give gift cards out for that. And it depends on, where the gift card is to. So it might, if it's like a Visa gift card, there's that's one thing, but if it's like a specific store gift card, it may or may not be convenient for where they live. And so I don't know, Katie, what else thoughts do you have about that?
Yeah, and I think there can be value to that. Certainly, SNAP letting people select their food. I think I would discourage you from selecting one venue, like one grocery store. You just don't know if that's the most convenient place that people shop. The other thing is, I talk a lot about the community, the other wraparound services that you can provide in addition to food, and building that sense of community in a pantry is really important also. And I know Brittany put in the chat, but if you want to hear more about the book, and I'm doing a discussion tomorrow with the one and only Chris Costanza from Food Bank News tomorrow through Island Press in our webinar. So there's still time to register for that. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. I know so many great.
I know there's so many good questions.
I know, and we will do our best to keep responding to these in real time and responding back. I'm thrilled with the interest. It feeds my soul to know that people are really interested in providing more choice, getting back into this great work.
Around, a lot of people are asking around the costs of the work with IDEO and the software. I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's not cheap. You know what I mean? But we are able to we have an amazing fundraising team here. And we really put a value on this kind of work and getting that kind of information. And so, we've worked really hard to fundraise for it. And we really, the innovation of My Pantry Express and offering an online food pantry, we believe is very important. It's one of our top strategic priorities. And so we've worked very hard to fundraise for that. That's why we're also trying to franchise it so that we can then take all that money and work we put into it and get it out into the world, either, for free or at a very low cost, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. Well, and, I think it's true also of just so many different ways to do this. I've heard of folks that set up Google Sheets, like talk about, some simple strategic ways of putting the food item that you have in a food pantry and having it as a Google Sheet where people could go on. It won't be available to everyone probably, but there are different ways to do this inexpensively, all the way up to all the bells and whistles. So fantastic. Well, I appreciate all of you spending part of your Wednesday with us. I appreciate all the work that you all do in your communities. Be happy, be healthy, and hopefully we'll see you back here next month. Take care.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.